I met this one guy. He's 23. He went all in on Tesla at 19, and now he has 500,000 in the bank. And then I was like, "Yo, do you invest in startups?" He was like, "Yeah." I sent him the pitch deck. He was like, "I'm really interested."
He
Let's set up a
sold
meeting.
Tesla. That's going to be your next video. Someone sold Tesla for me. All right, let's on Netflix.
Let's
I'm
on
kidding.
Netflix, everybody.
First of all right. I'm taking control. Welcome
Go
back
ahead.
to the Freelancer Finance Podcast. I am your host today. Vitaly says, look, I like Netflix. I'm like, yo, Netflix is trash. They have no good content. That was my thesis. He was like, I think you don't get the story. I'm like, no, you don't get the story. What are you talking about? Nonetheless, he decides to say, I'm going to keep buying Netflix.
I did not say
Now,
that.
I think Vitaly bought Netflix because of Squid Game. So it seems like he really loves risking it all for the glory. I think he was convinced that Love is Blind. Apparently, so was he, buying it at $380. And then I think he really bought it because of Narcos. And you know what? I think he was on drugs that day. Vitaly, how would you like to defend your horrendous decision justifying that Netflix was a good deal when you know it wasn't?
I am not a bull yet on Netflix. Okay, I have 5 shares of Netflix. All right, so and I bought it at 500.
You did defend them because I've had this conversation.
And I will defend them in this episode. I will defend them.
All right,
I have no problem defending Netflix because I'll start this off really simply.
I can't wait to hear the defense because it's so wrong on every level. But go ahead.
But also, in a court of law, the burden of proof, you don't do the defense until you've prosecuted it. Right, so
we should prosecute this first. We should also show the actual stock price. Should I just go to that real quick?
Yeah, and we should see what happened to it over the last week.
All right, and before that, join our Discord.
Patreon, $1 a month.
It's going away.
Netflix right now is $218. If we look at, let me just do the year view. We were at $678, so $700. We have fallen. What is it? 70%. The company is showing problems of their growth. But okay, so let's talk about the Bill Ackman thing.
Well, Netflix dropped from 650 to 380. And this made me really rethink my evaluation of Bill as a character because they have such a concentrated portfolio. They don't hold a lot of stock. So when they go for a stock, they go deep into a stock. Netflix was attractive after the first drop. They bought $1 billion worth of it. And then they sold immediately when the results came out for this earnings. And I think it highlighted the fact that Bill Ackman, I think this was a really good point that I think Tom brought this up, that he's disconnected from reality. He thought of Netflix as this like premium content. Everyone loves it. But in reality, if you're on the ground, you know that there's nothing to watch on Netflix. Bill probably doesn't watch Netflix, like, because he has hedge fund meetings all day. Like, if you go on Netflix and you try to find some content, you don't find anything. And I've known this for years, which is why I've always been bearish. This is the one stock I wish I shorted because my conviction was so high that I didn't put my money where my mouth is because it's always scared shorting something. But, you know, he took a big loss. So I think it shows that this company is past its growth stage. It's now a value stock, and it's going to be very difficult for them to justify to the market that they can actually grow.
I remember someone sold Palantir and the community was really pissed. Well, my point in that Cathy Wood selling Palantir, this is a similar thing that's going on, that if a big hedge fund manager or ETF manager, whatever she is, and Bill Ackman sells out, it doesn't mean he was right in his thesis of buying it or selling it. Netflix not having good content? Tell that to my 2 kids who can't stay away from it and don't care about Disney Plus so much. They don't want Amazon Prime. That's too confusing, first of all. Disney Plus has kids' content, but not enough of it. And Netflix actually has most of that content that kids want to watch. So your point of, the content being is wrong. The content is not...
It's not wrong. It's not wrong.
The content is for you, which is fine. Netflix doesn't have to appeal to every single
Apparently
person.
It was for 2 million people that decided not to subscribe.
700,000 of those was when they voluntarily cut off Russia. So they lost 700,000 right there. The net for the quarter was a net loss of 200,000.
But they missed expectations of 2.75 million. So
but
they couldn't get those additional
I think you were already right when you said it's a value play. This is what it looks like when a company reaches the top of the S curve. This is the moment when Apple stopped reporting iPhone unit sales and switched just to revenue. They realized they were not going to be able to increase revenue by just selling more. Everyone that wanted a phone had one, or they bought the used refurbished one from last year. The market was saturated. And now it's like, what, they have 200 and something million subscribers? That's like almost the population of the US. It's a massive amount of people. It's a country-sized population of people. I know that the market can still grow, but is it really realistic to think that that exponential growth can continue forever?
No, I think both of you are still missing the bigger picture here. It is not about saturation of the market. Content creation at scale and consumption of content is at an all-time high in human history. Netflix should be a multi-trillion-dollar company based upon the distribution and reach that they have and the storytelling skills that they have to make content. They cannot keep up with the fact that TikTok and YouTube, which is a macro argument around the attention economy, have taken massive amounts of attention because user-generated content is always more interesting than whatever premium shit Netflix cooks up, which some of it is good, but they can't keep up with people uploading 500 hours of video per minute on YouTube. This was the thesis breaker for Netflix. It was not about content saturation. They should be able to have multiple Squid Games. They can't do that because you can never compete with the creator economy, which is holding our collective attention and is objectively beating Prime, Hulu, Netflix, etc. Netflix was never a tech platform. It was always a media company. What media company is worth $100 billion, which is the market cap right now? Investors thought of Netflix as a tech play. It has always been a media company. Media and tech is different. Tech has user-generated content, and then they're able to have network effects. Netflix just has they pop up on your feed.
So tell me what Google is.
Google is a technology company.
How do they make their money?
People search stuff and they have advertisements that pop up when you
search. It's ads. Google is an ad sales company. Everything is for that purpose. The mistake here that you're making, the creative economy like you keep talking about, this has nothing to do with the fact that people are still going to pay for high quality content like Netflix or Amazon or Disney Plus. When I go at night to decompress, I don't want to watch Amit is legit 18 hours a day. Hold on. I don't want to watch Freelancer Finance 24/7. I do. A lot of people don't want to do that. You are a YouTube creator who's on YouTube 24/7 almost. Don't confuse yourself for everybody else. And they don't need to be advertised to just as a parent 24/7. Remember, Netflix gets, whether you watch it or not, it's $20 a month, or actually it's 10 to $20. So they have money coming in, whether you watch an hour of it, 10 minutes of it, 20 hours of it. The real point here is I'm getting to the problem that Netflix has. It's that maybe they do need better content. That could be one problem. The second issue is that they never had this free tier to really just bring in people into the fold. As soon as they open up this free tier, right? Hold on. That'll bring a lot of people into the fold who will never pay for anything. And the third thing is, there's actually a third thing on Netflix. If I'm going to talk about a bull case, they have 100 million people that are not paying it and sharing their passwords. Okay, this is not something they can sustain. Imagine if even a quarter of those people start paying. We're talking about billions of dollars of revenue that'll flood into their coffers.
In 2015, they were encouraging people. They have their tweets archived to literally share passwords.
That's 2015. This is 2022.
But you know why they did that? You know why they did that? Because it was good customer acquisition.
It's how the Grateful Dead, they would encourage you to pirate their shows.
Right.
And that's how they got famous.
Vitaly, you're wrong on this because you are misdiagnosing the problem. Netflix cannot be valued at even $100 billion. I still think it's expensive because it's not a technology company. It's a media company. Disney's a media company as well, but they have parks, they have merchandise. Netflix just has a subscription to watch content. At the end of the day, content is a commodity, which is why it's not even about good content. Unless you're talking about iconic, like Marvel type of brands that Disney has, Netflix doesn't have any of those brands. It is about how much content can you get in one place? And then here's the kicker. How can you algorithmically target that content to get people hooked on your service? That is what creates a technology company. That's what YouTube does, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. Netflix doesn't do that. Netflix has The Dark Knight that they've licensed for 5 months, and hopefully some people watch it. When The Dark Knight goes away, then they'll have to show you Stranger Things. When you're like, they don't have the ability to algorithmically recommend or create a recommendation engine of content that users are constantly posting to the platform, which is what gives a platform intrinsic value, which means it can't be a technology platform. All it is a media company, and they have to keep producing media. Guess what? Media companies are not that attractive businesses because they have to keep making media. YouTube doesn't have to make When Joe Rogan left, they were like, see you later. Now you're Spotify's problem. Spotify has to worry about you. Spotify can't keep Barack Obama. So like, my point is that this model is not going to work. User-generated content is going to win, and Netflix is not going to be a good stock ever.
They're not a media company. They're an advertising agency. That's what Netflix is. They think like an advertising agency. They have a lot of technology, but that technology is used to do exactly what Amit says. It learns everything about you. Here's how you know.
He's saying it doesn't. He's saying it doesn't.
No. I agree with Carlos. No. Real quick. I agree with Carlos. It does. The problem is they don't have the content to recommend with that data. They have the data.
Look, I'm trying to agree with you actually.
That's your point, right?
What I'm saying is the back end of that technology is to learn and literally how to keep people on the platform. They're literally tailoring it to you as a person. Now, the downside of that is because it's the content isn't created by the users, they're spending They're spending 17 billion a year
on content.
to keep
That's
pumping
insane.
that
What type
out.
of company deserves to be worth $100 billion at that rate?
That's their minimum burn, translating every movie into every language. Then they have this part where the content creation, and the content creation is being created just by the results of the data. So like House of Cards was because the algorithm showed that something with Kevin Spacey, something that was political, and some like 3 things it checked, they said are the highest rated shows. They made House of Cards and it was a hit, just like the algorithm said.
That's such a stupid use of the algorithm when you got YouTube, where you could just people upload their own shit based on the data they have.
You keep comparing it to YouTube. This has nothing to do with YouTube.
If the content was
I watch YouTube and I go to Netflix. Gonna be successful.
It's about attention being taken from premium to user generated. That's Carlos's
Once
point.
again,
Like,
if I have
data, but they can't actually do
you
anything.
keep forgetting.
They're all using the same algorithm. There's only a certain amount of eyeballs on Earth, and there's only a certain amount of hours in the day that those eyeballs can sit there and consume content. So it's a little bit of that. Like the population physically needs to get bigger so they have more of a market. But within someone's day, there are a lot of things that attract your attention. And so I have more times in my day where I can watch a YouTube video than I can watch a Netflix.
Agreed.
Show. Netflix is more of like going to the movies.
I went and watched Netflix with the kids like for 30 minutes because you're right, it is more like a movie theater experience. But today I probably watched more YouTube. So I agree with Amit that I'm not saying go buy Netflix, by the way. I'm just saying that when everybody is so bearish on a thing, most likely the crowd is wrong, especially when the thing has already just been hammered. $200 at $200, you're actually looking at it is a value play. Okay, Netflix is now a value play. It has gone 70%.
Where's my dividend?
They've got to get more eyeballs, and I think you're missing Carlos's point. It's like at 200 is fine, but like it's a media company valued at $100 billion at 200 a share.
No, what I'm saying is
what media company is worth $100 billion?
The media company that goes everywhere, all across the world, where everybody's accessing, that's the company that's worth the most.
No, it's not, because at the end of the day, that's the website with videos on it. I can't go to Netflix and search how to do my taxes. Now, Vitaly, your argument's gonna be like, well, no one goes to Netflix to watch taxes content. Well, if Netflix put up some videos around taxes and someone around April, people would click on it if it popped on their neck.
You know what? Well, hold on.
Do that because they're not a technology platform. That's my point.
What you're saying, actually, like a DIY thing, they should absolutely do that. Netflix can have a part of that market. I totally agree with you. I think there's actually, I'm not the bull here, but I'm saying they're missing on opportunities and you're discounting they have massive opportunities.
The DNA of the company is Stranger Things Squid Game. They'll never think of how to do your taxes.
I have to interject this because there's like a snuck premise what we talked about in the first time. The snuck premise here is that the YouTube model, whoever grabs the most attention the quickest is the way. YouTube could not succeed at Netflix's business model any more than Netflix can succeed at YouTube's business model. So what does that tell you? They're separate business models. So saying that like
one
Netflix,
is a tech company, one's a media.
No. But my point is when you're on the content side, I'm saying the content side, when you're saying Netflix can't give me the how to do my taxes video, but like that's not what Netflix is.
Agreed, but then we shouldn't value it like a tech company. I agree with you, but then why are we giving it a $600
But
YouTube,
I could argue that YouTube is valued as a media company too. It's not the tech I'm buying.
It's an ad company. That's what you're ignoring.
No, that's how they make money. But YouTube is a platform for media. They're both the same in that respect.
But a platform for media versus a website for media is different.
No. Netflix is access to an archive of a library of, just like I access Spotify for an entire library of music. I'm not going to YouTube for a library. I'm going to YouTube to figure out how to do my taxes. So they're not the same thing. And so they can be at completely separate valuations because they're fundamentally not competing with each other.
We can't treat it like a technology company because it doesn't have the UGC part, user generated content, which means we should value it like it's a website, like Forbes.com.
You can make an argument any company is a tech company because there's a lot of tech involved to just stay relevant and dominate in 2022. But these companies were around during the transition of that. You have to understand, Netflix started, it was analog, man. It was like a physical product, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like this was the end of that era.
They innovated. This is what I keep going to.
They innovated DVDs to streaming.
That took a lot of technology, but it doesn't mean that they're a technology company by today's standards.
It's 100 million people that they're not monetizing. And it's 2022, not 2015. They're supposed to change and grow. And people eventually are supposed to pay $10. I'm hoping they grow into something bigger. Like Amit is saying, they're only media. I do want them to grow into more tech and less just media. This advertising thing, just like Google does with YouTube, That is another thing they can do with this.
Look, just because you run ads and you need a crazy algorithm to serve the ads, I don't think it qualifies as a tech company. They're not building products that are changing the world. They're using technology to do because that's what you need to do. The way I would describe what Amit is saying is that in order for Netflix to operate and keep growing, right? Like there's a hole in the ship that's a certain size. They need to dump money and continue to create content, and people can consume this content so quickly. Like it's a really hard beast to keep feeding, where someone like YouTube is more the platform where that happens.
It's not just YouTube. It's any social media platform that has our attention, which is what Netflix is in the business is at the end of the day, your attention.
Yeah.
I believe on the macro, people want the raw, authentic creators over the premium. And I feel like that's why Spotify is not going to get it right with podcasts. I feel like Netflix is maybe not going to win in like they're going to be good, big companies, but I don't think they're going to beat the user generated content models. Netflix was in FAANG. What is FAANG? Big tech. I've been saying Netflix has never been big tech. I'm not trying to take credit for anything. I think it's very obvious. It was never big tech. This drop off is not crazy at all.
Netflix was the Tesla of that space. They created the entire streaming business model. At the time when they were growing into that company, it was a tremendous amount of tech. The thing is though, in 2022, if you're Disney and you have a couple $1 billion, you just turn on some algorithms and you can do the same thing. I do think this is now Netflix coming back down to a level that's more about the company that it is today. This is when they reach the end of that S curve. They're plateauing on, say, the subscribers, and now it's time to be valued as a value company, give a dividend, and become the nice stable giant, because this growth story is essentially over.
Yeah, I totally disagree. The growth story is over because you're still discounting the three things I said that are important. They're not monetizing everybody. They haven't expanded all across the world completely. They're not doing the free tier and bringing in more people. They're not actually using the CDN network they have to do other things. There's a million things that they can do because they are a technology company on the bottom of all of this media. There is that there. They're just not doing these things. And this is why I actually did not put 100,000 into Netflix. I bought 5 shares. That is the main reason. But
look how hard he fights when he only owns 5 shares.
5 shares.
You come after Enphase, bro?
Oh, forget it. Tear you apart. Enphase is a technology company.
No, Enphase is more.
But to say they're not is ludicrous.
Okay?
That's absolutely ludicrous.
In today's standards, they're not.
I actually have to. This is where I have to agree with Vitaly. They are a technology company, but they haven't played it yet. They're going into gaming. Now, with all the data that they have, all the data that they have, they know that no one spends more time in front of a screen than a person playing a video game. So how do you make a movie experience more like a video game? They had a test in 2018, I think it was, of like a choose your own adventure style movie where everyone can play it differently. At the end of like the 10-minute segment, it would ask you what decision should that person make, and you could go through and you could watch this 2-hour movie, and it had like 4 different endings. And then people would go back and rewatch the movie to try to basically see the entire tree. This is where they're going to play the technology, where they're going to try to make the movie experience more like a game.
What does Netflix gaming mean? Because
nobody knows.
Well, right now it's just the game.
What are we talking about?
It's kind of like the Apple Arcade, from what I understand.
Apple was always going to win at games because guess what? They had this in front of 1 billion people.
No, but my point is that 10 years ago, nobody would have thought. Nobody thought Apple would be good at gaming, and they worked it out where they would be good at gaming. And Netflix does have a lot of eyeballs. I know you keep forgetting, but there's 230 million people plus the 100 million people who are stealing it that are watching Netflix.
And Netflix thinks 2 million people are going to unsubscribe next quarter.
They had the COVID bump. All these companies had the COVID bump, right? Well, what's going now? All these companies are dropping all these same. Teladoc is doing the same thing. All of these companies that are growth companies,
I get it.
are doing the exact same thing and losing subscribers. Netflix is no different. That they're going to take a hit on this post-COVID. Everybody's going back outside.
Don't you see it as a problem? Your business model is like one metric: the amount of subscribers you have can tank.
Oh, it's a bad metric because they should have other metrics. Absolutely, yes. And they should have different ways to monetize. 100%.
But that's a very vulnerable position to be in if you want to put a lot of money in Netflix. It's like literally this one number. That's what Wall Street, that's what retail people are going to look at, and they could make a fortune that quarter. But if they lost subs, forget it.
Reed Hastings should have been well prepared for this moment where subscriber growth sort of stagnates even for a while. He's talking about it now in the conference call, if you guys heard a little bit. Why are you talking about this now, dude? You had 5 years to do this kind of shit. That's why I'm not buying Netflix tomorrow at the end of the day. I'm waiting for this to play out the way I'm saying, where are those different business models into effect? Make the advertising thing, do the free tier, get those 100 million people to pay. Let me see something happen, and then I'm going to buy in.
Let's talk about this getting 100 million people to pay. It is not as simple as just getting them to pay.
It doesn't have to be all 100 million, even if it's 20 million, 10 million.
The amount of conversation that is going to happen once, this is why they haven't done it, bro. Like, they know exactly who's sharing what. The reason they haven't done it is not because they're trying to grow. It's because they know that they are about to open up a Pandora's box. So now when I go to Amit's house, you're telling me I can't put my password without paying more money? What happens if I go overseas? Now I got to Netflix know that I'm going to be on this. The idea of like what I'm paying for of that service is now going to become in question. It's going to be discussed on Twitter, and they're going to be in the center of this like scandal, controversy.
I know, but they had 5 years, just like Amit said, actually 7 years now to discuss how this is going to play out.
I don't think there's any way to
this
have
is
it
why, no, but this is why you can't go in 2022 on a conference call and say, we don't have an answer for this yet, but we're working on it. Like, you had 7 years. This is my negative case against
What answer could he have said?
Well, I'll give you one solution that has been floating around, like even two-factor. For example, I have to pick up my phone and just log in into two-factor. That big deal. Everybody does that. My bank does that. I don't care. But it makes it harder for the person using just a password.
Why is Netflix telling me that I now have to do all of this stuff when I'm paying for access to this library? And this is the conversation I think is going to happen. And people are going to, this could be something that they try and they might walk it back a little bit. How can I not share my password? I'm paying for it. If I'm not watching it, why can't I, give it to a friend to watch? My mom's homesick. I wanted to watch Netflix. I got to pay you twice. People are not going to be happy about that, man.
Yeah, but that won't matter. At the end of the day, everybody's going to do the same thing. You think Amazon and Disney Plus, they're all going to do the same thing.
I don't think
they can subsidize it.
I don't think they are, because Amazon and Disney, they make money other ways. This is the problem with Netflix being all in on this business model, because Apple doesn't need to be number one. They just need to be like number 3.
I'm acting like I'm the bull here. I'm not the bull here on Netflix, but Peacock losing over $8 a month on each of its 21.5 million. We can do the math here. This is a lot of money they're losing. So when you say Netflix does not have this sort of a monopoly on content or media, and there's all these other people and blah, 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 these other people better survive a good decade, because if they can't, this content on Peacock might end up actually on Netflix.
It's not anything personal if people just drop their Netflix for a little while, right? They might just drop it for a little while and come back, go to Disney, because it has a couple of good movies. I've done that.
No, but my point is these other places are losing so much money, where Netflix is actually profitable if it wants to be, but it does spend a lot of its money on content. So my point is eventually Peacock...
If it wants to be. That is the most ridiculous thing I've heard. It needs content. No, his argument is
it does need content, but it could also scale back how much it spends. It does not need to spend as much as it spends.
No, because if you don't get a hit, and that's my point, if you don't get a banger, which it requires some money to produce it, you're done. People aren't going to come back.
They have a lot of content on Netflix that they're overpaying for, because for 10 years they needed to make a library and to get people in the door. At some point, though, they can go to these producers, the same deals they've been making, and say, we need to pay you a little bit less. This can happen. I'm in the film industry. This can happen.
That does happen. We know you want us on your resume, so you're going to accept less money, because if you don't, there's 10 people that are going to want to work for us. And that is a lever that they can pull. But the point is, they need to spend a crap ton of money a year to keep replenishing that library. But to Vitaly's point, Peacock is new, Hulu's new. They need to spend money now to get that hit, to figure out what their audience.
So much money. That's the thing. They have to now compete against
Here's my question.
Right, but this is NBC. You're talking about NBC's already making money. Like this, all of these other companies.
Peacock is losing money hand over fist, because they are not technology companies at all, 0%, and they're trying to do this, what Netflix has done for a decade. Oh, so easy to come in and do this media thing.
If Peacock had Squid Game, they would have 10 million more subscribers. They just didn't have the content. They have Office and Friends. So my question to you is, what if Netflix can't come up with the next Bridgerton, Squid Game straight? What if they can't do it? And if they can't, how do they grow? Do you know what was the most visited website in terms of traffic in 2021? TikTok beat Google. It beat Google. So that's not a question about, I love TikTok. That's a question of attention is not on the premium plays.
When someone goes on and watches a TikTok video, they're not saying, you know what, I could be watching Netflix, but I'm going to watch this TikTok video instead. They're not in competition. They're both going after attention, but they're going after different types of attention from different people looking for different things. They're like restaurants on the block. They're more like restaurants, right? To your point, though, TikTok, it's the fast food. It's the McDonald's. You can get in there and you can laugh your off in like 30 seconds, done. And then you could share it with your friends and then they'll laugh and you make a meme joke out of it. Amit is right that the amount of that is happening more and more frequently. So those people are not available. Their attention is physically not available to watch Netflix. And that is something that Netflix has to contend with because there is a finite amount of attention with the number of eyeballs that are on the earth. One thing I don't think you're considering, Vitaly, is that Netflix is not just creating content for one market. They have entire localization teams that they need to be on the ground in South America to know what that audience wants, every continent independently. That is really hard to sustain.
My point is in South Korea, they have South Korean TikTokers making the exact content that the South Korean audience wants because it's the same demographic of content creators. That's real tech to me.
If I want to test something today, I say, I think audiences are going to like this movie. Now you got to get the script, you got to get the actors, you got to shoot it, you got to color it.
You got to get legal's got to get involved.
So hold on. Amit, you're confusing the fact that yes, TikTok is taking eyeballs, but Netflix and services like it are not going away just because people want to scroll on TikTok at home in bed. Hold on.
Against this argument because it conflicts with your Facebook theory. Because if Facebook's numbers go trash in a couple weeks and TikToks are up, it proves my argument that if collective attention is moving away from the core legacy services like Netflix and Facebook, then that means that there's different things that are popping up and those companies are going away, which means you have to accept it is an argument around attention. Yes, Netflix is not going to go away, but if they're not getting past 220 million subs, the stock isn't going anywhere either. That's my point. It's an argument about attention.
You were right at $700 when it was overvalued. You are no longer right at $200. I'm not saying it can't go down anymore.
I might be.
I'm not saying it can't go down to 150 or whatever.
$100 million.
It's always the assumption. Someone can just come in and take Facebook's market. Someone can just come in and take Palantir's market.
TikTok just came in and did it. What are you talking about? They just
First of all, TikTok is owned by ByteDance.
But TikTok is a platform and Netflix is a content creator. That's the difference. You cannot compare a content creator to a platform. You just can't. That's like comparing, literally, it's like comparing the New York Times to my Facebook feed.
But that's my point. Netflix is the New York Times. They are a media company, which is why I think they could go lower because they're not a tech play. Well, not in 2022. I agree with you before they were tech.
In the sense of valuations and whatnot, I do think first of all, that is a problem. A lot of the legacy media in general, a lot of newspapers went out of business. I do think that there is a movement towards that all of these media companies, whether you're in, digital, print or media, have to deal with. What happens if full self-driving does take over, let's just say, and now you've got a bunch of people in cars.
They're going to be on TikTok. That's what he's saying.
They won't be on TikTok. They will be on
Netflix. They will be on TikTok.
No, they won't. Full self-driving opens up more attention. There's more.
I don't know about you, but if my car's driving itself, I'm looking at the outside. I'm not trusting the car. Like
you are right now, but even you in a year of like no accidents and never hearing about an accident, you're going to forget about it and you're going to get on that car the same way you get on a train. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what it's going to be like. When you get on the train, you don't think of having an accident. You don't think of the driver. You don't think of you just get in it and you do what the fuck.
But someone's driving it.
This is my point. The more it goes down, the better it looks, not the worse it looks. The more it becomes like a value play where it's at a 15 PE, not yet. It gets there. I'm like, oh, wow, it's at a 15 PE. And what if they do show some growth like you're saying? It'll never show it again. Their stock is going to double. And you're going to miss it because you're so consumed by TikToks and not by a valuation. I'm like, oh, my God, this is actually becoming a really decent deal that even if they don't explode and there's no 10X happening anymore. Look, Tesla's not a 10X, but if I get a double, sometimes I'm okay with a double.
Netflix was a content aggregator in 2015, going back to Carlos's point, when they became this whole like tech company, and they got The Office and Friends, and everyone went to Netflix because that's where all the content in the world was aggregated. Once the streaming companies realized, why the are we giving Netflix like The Office? We should have it ourselves. That's when Netflix had to become a storytelling company, which is why I think then the shift happened from tech to media, because now you've got to create content. Like now you've got to actually tell stories, and they've done a phenomenal job at it. But I just don't know if they can keep the spend up to create more and more phenomenal stories at the pace where TikTok and YouTube are creating those stories like at thousands of times per millisecond every day.
What happens when in the next 5 to 10 years, the streaming wars will play out where there's going to be only a couple of winners? Do we agree on this?
Yes.
What happens to all the little guys like Tubi and Peacock and whatever else? Wouldn't Netflix become an aggregator again and these other services too? They would aggregate that content back in?
If Peacock is losing a shit ton of money and they have to go back to licensing the content, you have a very strong bullet. Because if Netflix gets Friends and Office again, you get 10 million subscribers tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Remember Alta Vista competing? Remember Yahoo competing? Someone at the end wins.
That's the best point you've made so far in this.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's been overvalued for a long time. This shock of them losing subs was like, it's an eye opener. I think people are going to look into Netflix a little bit differently. And I do think there is going to be a reshaping about what this company is. They're smart that reinvent yourself and do it. But this is what like the Dave Lee S curves, this is the next S curve, right? So right. When you ask the question in 10 years, who's going to win the streaming wars? I don't think there's going to be a streaming war in 10 years. There's going to be something else. The premium content is not going away, but I think it's going to be a much smaller percentage. Because remember, they don't make money on how long you're watching. They make money if you just subscribe. You don't have to watch anything. So what can they do to get you to come in every month? That's the idea, right? They know how many PlayStations are out there. They know how many Xboxes are out there. If you find a way of getting 1/10 of just those people, that's something where like Disney won't chase them. That's where like Apple, maybe they're competing, but like that's where they grow. I don't think it's about growing the subscriber base. I think it's about getting more money out of the current people.
The only argument that I'm convinced of is this other companies fail and they become a content aggregator again. Because the Friends will always have 30, 40 million people around the world that want to watch the Friends all the time. And if Netflix has that, they're good to go, which they were for the past.
But then what we're talking about again is people paying money for an access to a library. They become Spotify.
Yeah, but the reason Spotify is such a beautiful business is because music is something people have an insane emotional relationship with. And if Spotify has the best interface for people to interact with music, they will always get that $10
but
bucks.
People don't have that with movies. I don't go back and I watch.
Well, but they do with the Friends. They do with the Office. They do with the hits, the 17 season hit, the Grey's Anatomies. But like Netflix doesn't have that many of those because the companies turned against them. But Vitaly's point is very smart. If Peacock's like, we can make 100 million a year just licensing The Office, why the are we trying to compete?
The way I was thinking about Netflix as a bull case, I was thinking, why isn't Netflix not buying like DC Comics? Like Disney was smart and bought Marvel. Why have you not bought DC? This is what I mean. Like this should have happened 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years. Like why have you not purchased it and have Batman on your roster? Why are you paying for Batman? Just buy it.
Yeah.
So I think there is a bull case there, but Reed Hastings, the CEO, has to execute on all these things. So I don't know what's going on internally. And that is why at the end of this, I'm not actually buying Netflix. But I do think everybody on it sends my spidey sense off like, oh, there's too much consensus around how bad it is right now.
Consensus sometimes is right about whatever company.
It is.
On sometimes. The positive or the negative. When people were
Palantir.
How do you not get Palantir? I don't get how you don't get it.
I really think that they need to switch to a value play. They need to stop reporting their subscriber numbers and just report revenue. Just do what Apple did. People freaked out when Apple said we're not reporting the sales anymore. They're like, what do you mean? Then they were like, look how much money we made. And they were like, it's fine. And that's all Netflix needs to do.
Apple did plateau. In terms of actual iPhone sales. And that's why they're like, you don't need to know how many iPhones we sell. Just know that they pay us every month.
How do you guys think Netflix actually gets new people? Because I've been a Netflix subscriber for like a decade now. Like Apple Plus, for example. So they put this We Crash thing out, right? They show the WeWork story. And I have a startup right now. I'm really interested in that. I got the 7-day trial. Now the final episode came out today. They said $5 a month. My 7-day trial ended. I got to see the finale. I have to see it. I made my sister sign up for the free trial so I could watch the last episode for free.
You are cheap. Like, $5.
I'm running
I like that though because we're investing in them. I like that, Amit.
I am paying the $5 a month. Not even going to think about it.
Yeah, but they have 280 million people. You can say that they've paid a lot of those parents. They've got you already. So it's like, how do they get another you? Everyone you know has Netflix. Everyone I know has Netflix. So it's like,
it has to be international, right?
How do you get
it has to be international. I think you're right about one thing that the U.S. is tapped and also 100 million people.
Or you're getting this younger, these new kids as they come in. This is what I think the gaming play is, and that's why I think.
Hold on, and this is back to the free service. So you guys are ignoring that, but imagine they have a free service, one screen or whatever, with ads. All of a sudden, Amit can watch whatever he wants.
Figured it out.
Hold on a second. Imagine
they buy Spotify.
Give me a sec. Imagine 10 million people subscribe, right? Imagine that because of this free service, like 23-year-olds who don't want to pay anything. But they're willing to watch 1 or 2 ads on whatever, Coke and whatever else is not Coke.
Vitaly, the ads thing is relevant.
It's the wrong thing. Coca-Cola, I meant.
Ads are only valuable where people have disposable income. And like, you got to get people in the United States or Europe or Canada, North America to actually watch those ads. Like, and that's not their market because they already have 84% penetration. So they got to get ads in places that don't have disposable income, like India. The ads are not going to be that ROI friendly for the advertiser. The ads are a mess. Like,
no, the ads would work. I know I've heard that on your channel or someone. Of course, it would work.
But I think
United States and Europe, massive advertising networks are built already with all of these Google and everything. So this is going to work. And it's going to make them a ton of money. And the thing is, but it's going to take a year to get there. And in that year, you can decide if it's worth investing because it's not a rush to invest today. That's the point, right?
I think Netflix should buy Spotify. I think they need to buy another company. And Spotify's market cap of 20 billion.
I say DC Comics.
But like, you're talking about content. I'm talking about like, what if they actually buy like another real big company? Like if Netflix has a moat of audio and then music and then video subscriptions and then all the podcasts or video podcasts as well, so they can, like, Netflix should have bought Joe Rogan. I mean, they probably didn't do it for political, but if Netflix buys the archive of Joe Rogan, 11 million people an episode turning it on. Joe Rogan does a podcast every day. Instead of Spotify getting 11 million listeners.
That's a good idea, actually. I like this idea a lot.
If I just told you right now, here's a free login to Netflix, you might just pop on and just go check out and see if you can actually find something. They're getting data on you. They're learning what you searched for. That's worth it for them. And, or if they said to me, I said to Vitaly, hey, look, man, we know you're sharing your password with somebody who lives in Minnesota. Like, it can't possibly be you. Okay, so we'll give you like 10 people a month that you can have that and they'll get ads. You know what I'm saying?
You know, you just came up with a great idea where they can still have their cake and eat it too.
There's things they can do, but I don't think it would have as much of an impact as you think. Like, it's going to blow them up. I don't think it would be that big.
I think it comes down to the content.
Yeah. Well, then I think you're right about this Joe Rogan thing. That's actually a great idea. If they had something like that, a daily show that you had to go there
that's
to
what
watch.
I'm saying. If they have some daily every single day, but that means they have to acquire like talk shows, I guess.
It's too simplistic to say that they're dead, especially when the stock price is becoming reasonable. And as investors, we're trying to value companies and grow with them, right? Yes, it's not a Google, for me at least. It's not gonna, I'd rather just buy Google stock if I had to pick one or the other. But if I'm diversifying, as Netflix drops, I don't mind picking up some shares as it goes lower. I'm not buying it today, I'm not saying that, but if they do some of these things that me and you we all talked about, I think it's not dead. I think this company's going to continue growing.
I'll give my 2 cents and Amit, you get the last word.
Yes.
All right. My 2 cents is I believe that Netflix has peaked. It's plateaued in a number of ways. And I think that the stock price needs to come down even more and settle at a new base as a value company, maybe offer a dividend. And there is a lot of levers that they can pull, but it's a lot of ifs. And if they do pull those levers, I do think that they will enjoy a higher multiple and a higher valuation. But I think they literally need to do again what they did going from DVD to streaming.
My final thesis is the macro in terms of attention is going to the creators like it has been for the past decade. Premium has a role in our society, but more and more people will think of creators as premium. And I think new platforms that are helping creators get discovered, they will become billion-dollar platforms, and they'll be much more valuable than Netflix or.
Man, if I only knew of one that did that for podcasts, it would be ridiculous.
Yeah, can you tell us about something that does that for podcasts?
Well, gentlemen, it's been real. It's getting late here, so you guys are like champs.